So we're talking about being inclusive. Ernest Holmes says, this was a book I just bought recently, and I think it was written in 1927 or 8. 10 Ideas That Make a Difference. We each have an individual part to play in the great scheme of things. The most valuable thing anyone can do is to be a little more certain each day that they are meeting life with a deeper understanding and sympathy for others, with a greater sense of love. And so when we talk about being inclusive, I think sometimes we think we get to pick. So I'm inclusive here, but yeah, not over there. And I have even said, I have people in my life that, you know, I love them because I know they're God-informed. However, I was thinking about this weekend, I have actually said I don't want them playing in my sandbox with me. And yet I think about that. What if my ex-husband walked through the door right now? Could I really stand here and say, oh, no, not you? Everybody gets to walk into Genesis except you. Except don't we all have one or two people that maybe in our life we think, yeah, I'm inclusive, except for that. I don't have to include them, do I? And so how do we be inclusive? You know, what is that we can do with ourselves? And so one of the things that I read this weekend was about telling the truth about yourself. We all have areas in our life that we don't share with people because we assume, oh, if they knew that about me, you know, they'd probably go out and find a new minister. Or if they knew that about me, they'd quit loving me. Why do we do that? Because that's how we've been raised. We've all been raised with a set of rules. You do this, and you get a cookie. You do that, you go to your room. And so we're conditioned to think love has a price tag on it. And the price tag is you'll perform the way I want you to perform, or I'm not going to love you. And to really be open enough to think, if you don't love me, that's okay. I'm going to be who I came here to be. And so I'm going to tell you a story about Greg Bear. I don't know if any of you have read his book. It's called Real Love. Greg Bear was an eye surgeon, very, very successful, happily married, 7 children. Found himself one day in his backyard with a Colt 45 stuck in his mouth because he was that happy. Because what he realized, and it had nothing to do with his wife and his kids or his job, it had to do with the fact he wasn't honest with himself on what he wanted to do. He was an eye surgeon because it was expected in his family that was what he was going to do. And so that's what he did. It was expected that he would get married and stay married forever, and that's what he did. It was expected he would have children because that's what his faith had taught him, to how many children to have. So although on the outside looking in, very successful, happily married, big family, not so much. So he wrote these books called Real Love. Real love is, can you love somebody unconditionally? Can you love them for who they are, regardless of what their story has been or how they present themselves? So how many of you struggle with that sometimes? Exactly. How many of you have a secret that you've never told anybody before about your life? Anybody want to share a secret? Go ahead, Darnita. Ah, all right. All right. I love that. And I remember not too long ago, Darnita came to an event here, and she had some work done, and what she said was, I'm going to start being bold. You know, I am going to start to be loud and proud. So that little dominatrix is now coming out in a different form. But she is really living her life loud and proud, and I bet she still has to remind herself, oh, that's right, I'm not playing small anymore. I'm going to be me, and people are going to... I don't think Tamara knew that about Darnita. So it really is. Anybody else? Deep, dark secret. You guys are really good. Deep, dark secret. Mark. Wow. Good for you for saying that. That takes courage. That takes real courage. Thank you. So yes. Yeah. Yeah, thank you. Good for you. Because here's the secret. When you share something that you think is your deepest, darkest, people aren't going to like me anymore, and you share that, and somebody looks at you and says, seriously, that's all you've got? Really? That was it? There's a power in claiming who you are. Not that you have to live in your past, and yet, if you hide things from people, if you think, well, if I dress up really pretty, and I comb my hair, and I look really good, everybody will love me. No, they won't. They'll love a facade. They'll love who you have presented them with. And then what happens is, sometimes you get tired of playing that. And when you get tired of playing that, then people look at you like, who are you? I had a really good friend. She worked, she was really high up in the hotel motel business. She was studying to be a minister, and she was a gay woman. She had 3 sets of friends. Corporate America friends, she had her ministerial friends, and then she had her gay community friends. For some reason, she thought it would be a really good idea one day to throw herself a birthday party and invite everybody until they got there. And then she was like, I don't know how to show up. And so her own birthday party, she locked herself in the bathroom because she didn't know who to be. And I bet every single one of you has a place in your life that you're like, okay, this is how I show up for those people. Because if I don't, they might not love me. They might not accept me. And so I encourage you, if you're going to be inclusive, you have to be inclusive with yourself. You have to say, this is me. Love me. Or don't. That's up to you. And if you don't, guess what? You're missing out on somebody fabulous. You are missing out on somebody fabulous. And so because I have talked about, I think, my sister before, there's a healing going on there, which is really, really sweet. I married my son last night, and my sister came. And what she said to me was, I am more excited to see you as a minister than I am to see your son, to see Jesse getting married. Because she'd never seen me as a minister. So that's a healing. That's a gift. This is who I am. And trust me, she knows all the stories from the past. She was there, you know, with her broom, kind of sweeping me back into the dustpan numerous times. So be honest with who you are. Claim it. Own it. Dance. You know, wear silly hats if you must. Be yourself. Because I believe if we really think, and I do, that I am a manifestation of God in form, do I really believe that there's a mistake going on anywhere? Anywhere there's a mistake? Just can't happen. It cannot happen. I don't believe God, if you want to call it God, Spirit, Mother, whatever name you tag on it, or don't call it anything at all, it doesn't make mistakes. It gave us this body. It gave us this life. And I believe it is in us just going, come on. Be yourself. Do yourself a favor. Scream out loud your most frightening thing you don't want anybody to know, and see if the world falls apart or if I strike you dead right where you stand. I promise you none of that is going to happen. None of it is going to happen. So the second step to being inclusive is to seek to understand instead of to be understood. So there's a great story about a project that they did with 10 people. And they said to these people, they were going in for job interviews, and they said, we have stuck dots on your cheek. And we want you to notice how often the interviewer looks at the dot instead of directly at you. So they came back out. Every single one of them said, oh, the interviewer stared at the dot all the time. All the time, just stared at the dot. 5 people had dots, 5 people didn't. But we all have something, don't we? You know, sometimes it's really obvious that we may be different than everybody else in the room. And then sometimes it's not, and yet we are. And so everybody has a dot. Every single person has something, be it trauma, be it, you know, whatever a parent told you. We all have something. And yet we come in guns blazing and, no, understand me. I remember talking to somebody, and we were talking about different religions. Oh, I listened to them, and then I told them exactly what I believed. And I went, yeah, that kind of stops a conversation right there. You know, not that you won't have an opportunity sometime if somebody asks. However, if somebody says to you, yeah, this is what I believe, to say, wow, that's interesting. Instead of, well, here, let me tell you what I believe, because what I believe I think is better than what you believe. Or how I live my life is more rich than how you live your life. We don't understand because we don't listen. It was interesting because a young man walked in here today. And I walked up to him and I said, is this your first time here? Yes, it is. I said, great, welcome. I'm Reverend Gayle. And I can't remember his name. I said, how'd you find us? And he said, oh, my friends in Bellingham go to a Christian Science church, and I've been to the Christian Science reading room a couple times. And I looked at him and I said, oh, full disclosure, we're not Christian Science. That's the door behind us. And before I could say we're religious science, he turned on his heel and walked very quickly out. And I thought, and that's okay. I'd rather be honest than have him sit here thinking, I don't remember it being like this before. And yet they're as right as we are. They're as right as we are. And so it's just, it's getting back to defending ourselves. When are we going to stop thinking we have to defend ourselves all the time? Because if I'm defending myself, what I'm saying is, you're wrong. You're wrong. I'm right. And it's not a place to live from if you want to build community. It's not a place to be if you want to be inclusive of everyone. To tell somebody, well, listen to me. And it's a practice. I still catch myself sometimes when somebody will say, oh, I went to this fabulous concert, and instead of being with them, the first thing out of my mouth was, oh yeah, it was just like that when I went to the Queen concert. And then I caught myself and thought, what does that have to do with her experience that she's trying to share with me? Nothing. It had nothing to do with that. And yet I think it's our default. We think we're communicating with somebody when they say the sky is blue. And, well, yeah, but it's really blue over here. You know, I fell down and broke my leg. Oh, I broke my leg once. It was really painful. And then go off with the conversation. So understanding people, listening to people, what they're really saying, and giving them that space that they've been really heard. Do you know that's why I tell you to sit with a practitioner? Because when you talk to them, they don't come back with their story. They don't come back with how to fix it. They listen to you, they look you in the eye, and all they see is God. I promise you. And then they pray. It's like a win-win. Why wouldn't we all do that? I should go sit up there today. It's a win-win. I encourage you to do that because, remember, on Sundays it's free. It's a gift they give to this community. And then the last step is to go out of your way to spread grace. There is a book called From Racism to Gracism. And the book was written by a Science of Mind minister. And it's about just put the G. Put the G in your life. The G standing for God. That's where gracism comes from. And so just to allow yourself to put yourself in somebody else's shoes. And so the last story I want to share is about a woman who wrote a letter to this minister after he wrote the book. And she said, I had an opportunity to really live that. She was at the airport, standing in line, and a family was kind of lost. She said they were Hispanic. They didn't speak very good English. And they're kind of wondering where to go next. And in her head, she started to think classic thoughts about these people because they didn't speak English and because they were Hispanic. And she owned that in the letter. And she said, and then I remembered your book. And she said, with very little Spanish capability, I said to them, come stand in front of me. And she said the minute she said it, this woman's face just got so bright and looked at her with so much love. Thank you for seeing me. Thank you for understanding how scary this is for me and my family. Because we're someplace where we don't speak English. And there's 5 of us. And we're going to slow the line down. So what? That's gracism. Put yourself in other people's shoes. Walk a minute or walk a mile before you start to judge somebody. And then come from that space of really understanding we're all God. We're all here doing our best. And to really own that. And to spread that out into the world. Do you realize how different the world would be if we really, 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 really loved each other without judgment? Because when you start to not speak it and you run it in your head, eventually it will quit running in your head. And so that's the gift that we give to everybody today. And so knowing that, taking a deep breath in together, knowing that we sit in a community that is founded, that is built, is the very foundation of Genesis is unconditional love. So as you know that and you own that, I invite you to remember who you are, how magnificent you are, how wonderful it is that you said yes to this body that houses the divine. And when you feel that and express that, to realize you're giving everybody around you permission to do exactly the same thing. And when they have that opportunity to dance wildly, freely, as if nobody's watching, then the world becomes a better place. Because you've given everybody the opportunity to say, yes, I am bold, I am brave, I am here, and I belong. Thank you, God. And so it is.